What's up, dudes? Max here, back to making a video about something that I think it's been probably over a year at this point that I haven't talked about, and it's my most anticipated game of, well, whenever the hell it's gonna come out, Final Fantasy VII Remake. You might be questioning, what the hell is Max doing talking about Final Fantasy on a fighting game channel? But believe it or not, FF7 is actually my favorite game of all time, and I know a lot of you guys have probably recently joined the channel over the past year, and there hasn't been any updates on this game, so it's a good time to talk about it, because there has been an interesting development of the game recently with some information that finally has dropped, but it's been a very curious past year and few months because there were several opportunities Square could have talked about this game, including E3, PlayStation Experience 2016, as well as the Final Fantasy 30th Anniversary event, which took place right around the actual launch day of FF7 in Japan. We really didn't get anything at either of these events, especially E3 and PSX, and I was really anticipating that there would be something, so a lot of myself being upset that there was no FF7 info kind of faded away, and I'm just hoping that they're working on the game in some fashion, because we only got one thing recently, and that was at the 30th Anniversary event, and it was just key art. This image is really cool, and it does have a weird kind of black wing thing going on with Sephiroth, but dude, it's key art. Like, this could have been done by a couple of people over the span of a week. What the hell is going on? And there has been some questioning things in regards to FF7 Remake's development, especially for the fact that there was one of the producers talking about the game saying that they were polishing up the bombing run. The bombing run! Like, that's the beginning of FF7. It's the first part of the game that kind of introduces you to its world. And to hear that they're polishing up the bombing run, it's like, the hell have you guys been doing? Because there is more development behind this game than the usual fare at Square Enix. For example, Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 15 are completely made in-house. And those games have notoriously taken a ton of time to come out. So that leaves everyone kind of worried, especially with Nomura at the helm, who's notorious for getting games delayed a long damn time. What's gonna happen to FF7, because this is kind of an important game to a lot of damn people. But I wouldn't be too worried, because there is a development crew that is helping out with this game that is not internal over at Square Enix, and they're called CyberConnect2. These guys are a huge development team in Japan and responsible for a lot of different projects, and FF7 is one of their biggest, I imagine, at this point. They also do some of the best visuals and cinematics and really good-looking stuff in terms of animations and art in video games today, but when it comes down to the actual gameplay to design aspects, that's completely handled by Square. These guys essentially make the meat and the bones of the game, while Square tells them exactly what to do. So having CyberConnect2 in the background working on things means that stuff is getting done. These guys get stuff done at a fashion and in a rate that is a lot more frequent than you would be used to, especially considering Square Enix is the one making the game. So I'm not too worried there, but they also have made some of my favorite games as well, so I'm not too worried about the game's development. I'm also thinking that there is going to be a big opportunity for FF7 coming up in the near future, because there was a trade show event that recently happened where Nomura was talking about the game, and believe it or not, he had screenshots. Yep, this is the first time we're seeing Final Fantasy VII in-game since December 2015. Holy shit. I mean, it has been a year, but it has technically been like the third year passing at this point. But I'm glad to see that there is stuff in development, especially for the fact that they have gotten the core system down, it looks like, at this point. The biggest one is the fact that Cloud is using cover in this situation. And as worrisome as that is, and it's reminding people a lot of like Final Fantasy 15, I wouldn't be too worried because they're trying to utilize the environment as much as possible, which is what Nomura is talking about. He was quoted at the event saying, since you're supposed to be infiltrating the Mako reactor in the mission, it would only make logical sense for the team to make it a stealth mission where you can hide behind cover in the environment. Also, you can initiate combat if you want to, or if you want to try to stay in cover and not be detected, you can make it a stealth mission, and you can also throw grenades at enemies to initiate preemptive attacks. I do kind of like the fact that they're talking about grenades once again, because that's a big aspect of the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, is all the tech and the gear that you find laying around Midgar. So utilizing that stuff in gameplay, they're doing some pretty cool stuff here. I'm actually kind of happy with the direction they're going, as long as combat is the main focus of the game. and especially for the fact that when you look at the command list and the UI of the game, there are some interesting things to talk about. Of course, attack and item are things that we've seen several times before, especially in the previous FF7, but the magic menu and the materia menu are curious because usually materia was directly assigned to magic in the previous game. The materia slots did unlock magic, but now it seems that you can directly access materia from the in-game menu, leading me to believe that you might be able to make materia combinations on the fly during combat, which would be interesting to say the least. I'm kind of curious where they're going to go with that, and that would make logical sense if you can directly select materia from the menu. However, materia is highlighted out right now. There's a small, slightly different colored bar on the left, meaning that you can't directly access it, at least at this early part of the game, which probably means that Cloud doesn't have a lot of materia at this point, or it's just something that they haven't actually unlocked to teach the player. Now, one of the most interesting things in the UI, which is what seems to be near final, is what's taking place above the action menu, and it's an L1 and an R1 button. It doesn't seem immediately apparent what those would be available for, unless it's for other party members that you could possibly select and switch to. I'd imagine L1 selects a command attack list that represents Barrett or potentially another character, because in the next screenshot, which is the Guardian Scorpion first boss fight, we do see that Barrett is teaming up with Cloud. All of his UI menu stuff is extremely similar, and the command list still says L1 and R1. I really hope this means that you can switch over to Barrett, you can directly control other characters, because we have seen stuff like that in the previous gameplay which showed up in December 2015. Please let us control the other characters, because I don't think anyone wants a situation like Final Fantasy 15 again, where the son of a bitch will not heal you. Also, imagine the combo attacks. There are some things about FF15's combat that I really do enjoy, and its fluidity, and it looks great. I hope they take some stuff from Final Fantasy 15 and do directly inject it into FF7, as well as some other stuff from Kingdom Hearts, but this is supposed to be an action RPG as they're describing, so I'm hoping it's not just an action-y RPG and actually has action elements. Give us more stuff than one button to attack with a character, maybe a light and heavy attack. Do things that are kind of interesting and can change the dynamic of a fight, other than just the basic selection and just holding down a button for attacking. That would be awesome. I mean, how cool would it be if there was team combination attacks, kind of similar to stuff that you would see in something like Chrono Trigger way back in the day? I know that's a big Chrono Trigger staple, but just imagine if you can control all these characters and maybe combine their limit breaks with each other. That'd be really freaking cool, especially considering that the limit break meter is separated into 3 bars right now. It's almost kind of like fighting gamey at this point. You have 1 bar which is probably used for something, and then all 3 bars which is represented by the golden bars at the bottom, meaning that you need to use this thing as soon as possible. I hope that limits are somehow joined up with other team members and rosters, but there is something that's different from the limit break system that we remember before, because it was 1 bar that filled up to the top and then you used it and that was it. Now let's just talk about the screenshot, especially in the Guardian Scorpion fight. There's something going on in here that probably should be talked about, because there's target icons all over the ground. This really reminds me of Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, where the ground gets painted with the attack area that an enemy is going to be hitting you from, and you have to avoid that stuff as soon as possible. This looks really similar, but I'm also thinking it could potentially be a first boss fight thing, because the Scorpion does do this attack where its tail goes up and you're not supposed to attack it when its tail's up, and it totally blasts the shit out of the whole party. This is also represented because at the top of the screen, his tail is up indeed, and there is a glowing blue orb, which is also the same color that he attacks you with in the original game, so I'm thinking that this is exactly what's going to be happening, and he just litters the entire ground with missiles and a plague of death. Graphically, I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys, it looks a little low res right now, and I'm thinking this could be an engine thing where it's dynamically changing the resolution depending on what's going on, where it goes a little bit lower or a little bit higher. I don't know why they would directly use this screenshot. I'm guessing it's for an element of chaos, but the biggest aspect of it is the fact that the environment is going to be destructible. So you see things in the background that are crashed and burning and moving all over the place, and that is going to be a big aspect of boss fights in this game, according to Nomura. He also went on to say that it is indeed an action game, but it's not going to be too violent because they want people to keep playing. which leaves me happy. If he's actually talking about the game like it is an action game, that could mean that this could be a little bit different than Final Fantasy 15, even though that is an action RPG. I hope they focus on those action-y elements, reward the player for precise timing and movement and things like that. Cloud should have a dash or a dodge, and potentially other characters have more defense, like Barrett can't dodge. Things like that would be very fun, because every character would feel essentially unique amongst this roster, and you can do different things in combination with other characters, like making them go faster and stuff like that. I don't know, it's a lot different than the FF7 we know and love, but at the same time, I've recently played Final Fantasy VII within the last year. I love the game, but I do not want to see that same game all over again with just a shiny coat of paint. I know a lot of you guys do, that's just my opinion. He also did note that the user interface itself is not finalized, but once it is finalized, they're going to be able to show the game running. So there is some elements that they are almost ready to do, and I'm thinking the fact that they were talking about certain aspects of this game, like we're polishing up the bombing mission, we're trying to get this ready. It makes me seem like they're preparing for a giant media blitz, because Nomura did have a trailer ready at this event trade show, and he was not allowed to show it. Square Enix officials in the literal last moment said, don't show the trailer, only show a couple of screenshots, which look like they could have been potentially taken from the video. And this entire thing leads me to think that Square is waiting for a media blitzkrieg for FF7, and not at some small trade event. They're probably going to be teasing it, leading up to it, and the next big opportunity is most likely going to be E3 2017. I would only imagine at the 2-year anniversary of the announcement of FF7 Remake, they're going to be showing off a lot of stuff like the finalized UI, the finalized mechanics, tell us how materia works, tell us how the gameplay system's going to work, more characters and things like that. It's going to be a pretty big opportunity, especially at E3 this year, and maybe the latest possibility being Tokyo Game Show. My big hope, my hopes and my dreams going forward with this thing is that at E3 this year, FF7 is going to be playable, which would make sense because they're talking about polishing up the bombing mission, which is the beginning part of the game, and they would most likely want to polish it because it's the first time the press and the public would be seeing the game in motion and people would be playing it with their actual hands. I can only hope that that's true, and at the same time, it would make a lot of sense that it might be available to everyone right around the same time, in correlation with Final Fantasy XII, which is Square's big game that's coming out in the Americas this year. There's not much else coming out from that company outside of Japan, so I'm thinking there could be an opportunity to release a demo with something like Final Fantasy XII. I thought it would be FF15 way back in the day, but that just never happened, and we didn't hear anything about FF7, which made a lot of sense as well because they don't want to take the thunder away from Final Fantasy 15, but we'll have plenty of time, absolutely plenty of time, leading up into this game and then Final Fantasy 12 for a potential demo. Square Enix really can't do this carrot on a stick dangling thing. They have to go all out at some point, and I'm really hoping that E3 this year is going to be that. So hopefully we can get just an exciting reveal at this one as we did at the one in 2015. The other big news that popped up is that the voice acting for the game is polishing up and is almost done. I'm not too sure if this includes the English voice acting, but it definitely includes the Japanese voice acting, because the producer of the game was saying that the voice for Cloud might be a bit different than you remember, especially from something like Advent Children, because in Advent Children, Cloud is a different character. He's gone through a series of events that have led him up to be the way he is and to have the voice he has. And this is, they call him Prime Cloud. This is Cloud before the storm, so he should have a different voice and he should talk different, and they are tackling that approach. There's also an interesting thing when it comes to voice acting over in Japan, and they usually tackle voice acting a bit later when it comes to certain aspects. Game development can be a bit different, but when it comes to big media, they usually get voice acting done near the end. So a lot of people are kind of hopeful that this game might be a bit further in development than we all think, and they're just holding back on stuff. Which would make sense because they held back Nomura from showing a trailer just about a week ago. I only hope it's true. There is so much about this game that could be absolutely awesome. I really want to explore Midgar. I want them to make Midgar absolutely huge. Make this something that you can definitely put into a full game, because Midgar, just in terms of a fictional place, was really not very explored in the first Final Fantasy VII, and it's just a really cool introduction area to what the game would eventually be. I know we got some Midgar segments in Crisis Core, but that ultimately just kind of ends up being like a Kingdom Hearts zone, and I'm really curious what they can do if you actually make this place a full game, and I think they're going to do that with the first part of FF7 Remake. That's all we got right now, and there's hopefully more right on the horizon. Within the next 4 months, I'm hoping for a big media blitzkrieg of this game. If there's any other news and information, I'll be back as soon as possible, especially when it comes to delays or them not talking about stuff. It's very clear that they're sitting on a lot of FF7 Remake right now in terms of media and a big blitzkrieg of that media, and as soon as that happens, guys, I'll be back to update you all as soon as possible. Are you still looking forward to Final Fantasy VII Remake? I know it's been a long time I've talked about it, but hopefully you didn't mind the video, because I just wanted to talk to someone about it as well. As always, dudes, thank you a ton for watching. I'll be back with more updates as soon as possible. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.